The struggle for independence is a long, long road. We came to appreciate that the oppressors could only understand the language of the gun because it was the same language they used to suppress our own forefathers in order to colonize this country. Everybody was enthusiastic about the creation of a new independent state born out of an armed struggle, a very painful armed struggle. Whether they could be church people, they could be political organizations, whatever association, as long as you are Zimbabwean, there's a platform for us together to move forward and share the destiny and the vision for our country. We must fight corruption. And this should not be a Mnangagwa crusade. This should not be a government crusade. It must be a crusade by the entire society of Zimbabwe. We have created a platform where every genuine patriotic Zimbabwean can come and participate, and they use their talents and they contribute to the global, national vision. It's not a Mnangagwa vision, it's not a ZANU vision, it's a national vision for our people. Let us be hard-working, honest, hard-working people. Be rewarded, be prosperous on the basis of honesty and hard work. As we move forward, we don't want to leave anybody behind, nor any place behind. Not everybody can embrace good ideas at the same time.
It is often said life begins at 40, and Zimbabwe turns 41 this year after attaining political independence in 1980.
18 April is the National Independence Day of Zimbabwe, a momentous occasion for the people of Zimbabwe where they celebrate their heroic struggle for freedom, independence and democracy. And it was the culmination of a very bitter war, one of the bitterest wars ever fought on the African continent, where the flower of the country's youth, building up from an early start in the 1960s, became a storm in the 1970s, a military storm that is, which stormed the ramparts of the then colonial settler regime, forcing them to an armistice and eventually an election. The beauty about our independence is that though we were on the verge of victory, military victory, we decided to follow an international standard, which was to go for an election so that the people can choose who can be their leader. So our military struggle was actually kept with an election. We did not do the conventional push to office of other national liberation movements in Vietnam, in Cuba, in China, in Algeria. No, we agreed to an election.
They gained 57 seats.
From the onset, Zimbabwe began its journey on a democratic footing through the elections of 1980. This signaled the death of colonial oppression and heralded a democracy brought in by a historical election.
We won an election which astounded the world. But for us, who took part as the armies of the two national liberation movements, we were not surprised. we had worked very hard to organize our people, particularly the majority in the rural areas. But towards the end of the war, we were also in urban areas. And the word of a people having their new army created out of their own sacrifice resonated with the voters.
This newly found democracy endured for some time until it was threatened by destructive forces. The people of Zimbabwe rose once again to defend this precious democracy.
And when there were dynastic tendencies by the group of the G40s with the active coaching of the former president, the people of Zimbabwe resented and eventually they removed him from power. We are glad that one of the luminaries, the early luminaries of the revolution, His Excellence President Mnangagwa, eventually emerged as the president of Zimbabwe. You got to give it to him. He is a young man, in his teens. The country is thinking of forming a new army, something which had been unheard of by Africa for probably 60, 70 years, since slavery, since colonial partition of Africa by the Berlin Conference. And the clarion call is that to remove the entrenched settler races of Southern Africa and Rhodesia, in South Africa and Namibia and in Mozambique and Angola, we have to fight, because we were defeated militarily. We have to reverse our loss militarily.
Initially, as it's already known, our leaders then thought they could achieve one man, one vote through political agitation. But the time came when everybody in the leadership realized that one man, one vote could not be achieved through political agitation. We came to appreciate that the oppressors could only understand the language of the gun, because it was the same language they used to suppress our own forefathers in order to colonize this country. It was at that stage in the 1962, 61, 62 that our leaders began recruiting us. For instance, for myself, I went in 1962 up to 64 when I then graduated from Nanking Military Academy in China in 1964.
So here is a young man who responds to that clarion call at that age and becomes the crucible. They become the crucible of a new army. To have the vision back in 1960s when he was a teenager to say, we can create an army. It's something which you've got to give it to him and his fellow comrades, most of them who are not there today. And it is a matter of a terrible beauty that by 1970s, the army had grown to to tens of thousands. We were never short of recruits to fight the colonial army. So it's a qualitative and quantitative leap which could not have been imaginable when President Mnangagwa, as a young man, decided to go and join, to become the nucleus of the army in the 1960s. God has been kind to him. He has made him survive. And God has been even the more kind that today he is at the helm of this country. The beauty about it is that he is somebody who has got the institutional memory of the path which Zimbabwe has traveled over a very long period of time. The experience of jail, the experience of farms, of guerrilla warfare, and then the experience of actually building that army and professionalizing it. You know, I am a student of his. When he came back to the party after jail, after education in Zambia, we decided to have a professional intelligence organization, which the ZANU side did not yet. He was instrumental in setting what has become Africa's most formidable intelligence and security apparatus. And I was a beneficiary of being the pioneer cadre.
Not only was Comrade Mnangagwa instrumental in building the democratic apparatus of the new Zimbabwe, He was key in defending it as well.
He was the mastermind of the transition process when a lot of games were at play as the Rhodesians tried to deny us victory at the winning lap. The Rhodesians, having lost the guerrilla warfare in the field, they wanted to take off of organizational advantage within Zimbabwe during the transition period to reverse the gains which were won during the war. President Mnangagwa, as a security and intelligence guru, managed to maneuver through all of them.
Just before the Prime Minister-elect became Prime Minister substantive, we gathered intelligence that there was going to be a coup so that the inauguration would not proceed by General Walls and his team, the Rhodesian Army. When I briefed my boss, the former president, President Mugabe, said, so what do we do, Emerson? Initially, if you remember, I don't think you had grown up, me and Rex, General Mjuru, me and Rex smuggled former President Mugabe out of the country to Maputo and to Nyerere. It was because the coup was very imminent. And when we removed him, they said it was no use to proceed when the head of the revolution was outside the country. He went away to, he didn't know precisely what was there. We said it's for his security. So he went to Maputo, and we persuaded him to go and report the situation to Samora and to go and report to Nyerere. It took 2 days, Maputo and then Tanzania and back. And now, when he came back, we had made a strategy. We had agreed with the former president, Mugabe, was Prime Minister-elect then, to call the leaders, the 5, constituting the service chiefs. The 2 of us, me and former President Mugabe, we sat there. So we allowed them to come in. Okay. Then the 2 of us met these 5. Then the president, Mugabe, says, General Walls, I have won these elections and I'll be inaugurated as Prime Minister. But there's ZIPRA, there's ZANU. These are guerrilla armies. You command a conventional army. From the day of my inauguration, it becomes the army of the new Zimbabwe, not Rhodesia anymore. So I cannot have Dumiso or Masuku or Rex as commander of this new army. I request you to be the first commander of independent Zimbabwe army. He took his hat, put it on, stood up. After looking at his colleagues who also said, no, shaking their heads, nodding. So he stood up, saluted, and said he accepted. Then he did the same to General McLean. He stood up, saluted. He went to the police commissioner, Peter Alam. Zanla, ZIPRA have no police. We had all kind of police, but it's not conventional police. Alam looked at his colleagues, stood up, saluted, he accepted, went to the commander of the Air Force, Air Marshal Wessels, with his colleagues, he said, we have no Air Force, you were bombing us left, right, and center, but now it's a new order. We need you. Stood up and saluted. But when we reached the last guy, Ken Flower, says, but before I accept, I want to confess that we still have parcel bombs, which we sent to you. But I also accept, and I will now make arrangements to make sure they are diffused.
Comrade Mnangagwa's brilliance helped build a unified new democracy of inclusiveness.
And by the end of the day, we had the election victory, but more than that, we had the nucleus of a unified state, which combined the former warring armies. And today, the Zimbabwe Defense Forces has the best traditions of guerrilla warfare and conventional warfare. It is the best army in Africa. So whether it be in the defense apparatus, whether it be in the security and intelligence apparatus, our president now was instrumental in building up that capacity, which has made the Zimbabwean state very strong, owing to the traditions of the two guerrilla armies of ZANU and ZIPRA. He also has built a formidable reputation in the sub-region. There is not an issue of security and intelligence which Zimbabwe has not been engaged in, of which he has not been a part to. We had to checkmate Renamo in Mozambique when South Africans wanted to use to cut us out from access to the sea, apartheid South Africa at that time. We sent back our army to Mozambique, this time as a victorious army, to thwart the menaces of Renamo as a cat's paw of the apartheid regime. We went further. We were very instrumental in helping Namibia gain its independence. I was deployed again as an intelligence officer during the transition of Namibia to independence, a difficult period when SWAPO was again on the verge of being denied political victory at the election box. We were using Zimbabwean intelligence, using the briefing which President Mnangagwa gave to SWAPO as a liberation movement. We became a very powerful countervailing force to South African and Western machinations to thwart SWAPO victory. And in '89, we were happy that Namibia could be independent. In the same time, in the same vein, we were helping apartheid South Africa. Both Zuma and Mbeki, they were hosted here. We were the stronger of the then frontline states after Mozambique had been weakened by continuous aggression of apartheid forces. Mozambique, with a weaker economy, was caving in. We became the bastion of the anti-apartheid struggle, with Zimbabweans contributing from their own hard work to the war effort of the ANC as a liberation movement of Southern Africa. We're happy in 1994 that those efforts gave issue to a new and free South Africa. Indeed, we can say that the victory of the ANC in 1994 is a bonus to the military achievements of the ZANU and ZIPRA forces, because when we fought the battles of Mavonde, the battles of Mapai, the battles of the Viscount discounts, which were showing our mettle, it became clear to the Western countries that if South African whites persisted in practicing apartheid and denying majority rule, the black South Africans were going to equally organize and perhaps even surpass what ZANU and ZIPRA had done in Zimbabwe. And there would be a military victory which would have reversed any illusions of perpetuation of Western influence in the sub-region. So I want to say without equivocation that the military victories of ZANU and ZIPRA in Zimbabwe were central to the winning of the ANC, their freedom struggle, without having to go through the rigmarole of a painful war. South African independence was a bonus to the military prowess of ZANU and ZIPRA in Zimbabwe. Again, our President Mnangagwa was involved in that process. So these are footprints of Zimbabwe's state apparatus doing its best in the sub-region. And now we are facing the situation in Cabo Delgado, where terrorists using a religious bent are again threatening the sovereignty and independence and the economic progress of Mozambique.
Mozambique is a sister republic to Zimbabwe. What affects Mozambique affects Zimbabwe.
I am giving a perspective on the long road traveled by our president for the cause of Africa, from a young man as a guerrilla fighter to a guerrilla leader in Mozambique, and eventually to post-independent state construction of Zimbabwe, and to the regional diplomacy which he is now playing, which he has ever been playing even when he was in the First Republic, to consolidate the gains of Africa against the forces who would like Africa to regress to colonialism and slavery. So we are very lucky to have a leader of this stature who is building upon even the reputation of the Zimbabwe Army with the United Nations state apparatus. I continue to emphasize the Zimbabwe Defense Forces because it is the core of ZANU and ZIPRA, which lies at the center of the Zimbabwean state today. And it is the one which has been made us able to withstand all the machinations of the Western post-imperialists to try to use sanctions as ZANU to reverse our land reform, to try to restore the authority of puppets in the country as a buffer for Western domination.
While Comrade Mnangagwa stood out to build the state apparatus at the birth of our democracy, it is his recent exploits that have reset the people's sovereignty back on a democratic path.
The ultimate victory which has been delivered by the president came in June 2020. For 1,000 years, Zimbabwe has built its civilization on the strongest currency in the world, gold. The legend of Zimbabwe is one of gold. In Hindi, gold is Sona or Shona, something like that. Now we are the Shonas. The Shonas are the majority of the people of Zimbabwe today. Shona is not a tribe, it's a language. It's a language which comes out of commerce. And when we ask where does the word Shona come from, the Indians actually believe, and this is from the Indian ambassador, he believes that because of our gold trade, the Indians called Zimbabwe gold land, Shona land. It's not, the Indians were not the first one to call us gold land. The Portuguese came looking for the empire of Prester John because of its gold riches. And the legend of Monomotapa is built upon gold. We also had the Persians coming here to trade. Kilwa was a trading center for gold. We also had even the Ethiopians and the biblical Jews talking of King Solomon's mines. That's why the legend of King Solomon's mines is here today. So all the literal Indian Ocean countries or nations which traded with Zimbabwe, going even as far as China, going even to Indonesia, we were a country which sustained a continuous civilization from Mapungubwe in South Africa all the way to Great Zimbabwe and Kami to Danamombe in Guerrilla, on the basis of gold trade. So we ran our economy for 1,000 years on the basis of the strongest currency available to the world, gold. Now, this state which was founded on gold trade collapsed because of the military weakness. When we became independent in 1980, not much was done to address the financial mess which came out of the collapse of the Zimbabwe dollar and of gold as the national currency. We remained in the throes of a foreign currency which was being allocated according to racial privilege. And the First Republic was not alive to the deleterious effect, to the debilitating effect of this reliance on a currency which was other than domestic to Zimbabwe. As a result, when we carried out our land reform, there was an attack. The favorite weapon of the imperialists or the neo-imperialists is inflation. They use it everywhere. And in 2008, we had an inflation rate which was mind-boggling, which was even could not be explained by science. You know, our currency was depreciating at a rate several times faster than the speed of light. It means that the transactions which the people of Zimbabwe were carrying were faster than the speed of light from the sun to the earth. How is it possible that Zimbabweans could acquire such a speed when they are mere mortals like any other race? The inflation was coming from calculators, people just punching figures until it becomes, stratospheric, the inflation rate. So this was a clear indication that we were not in control of our currency, and we persisted under that bane of inflation for quite some time, until they tried to use it again for the July 31 uprising last year. But our president this time, because he understood the issues at play, he moved very quickly. He had statutory instruments put in place that controlled a runaway exchange, foreign stock exchange, which was creating inflation through derivatives from Old Mutual, which was an alter currency to that offered by the central bank. So a private company was issuing currency when the sole authority to issue currency in Zimbabwe resides under the statutory provisions of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and the Ministry of Finance. Now a private company was actually arrogated itself that role to become the printer of currency in Zimbabwe. And it was being abetted by the emergence of digital money. And a private company, again associated with a private company, EcoCash, was printing money, allowing even young men in the street to print money, so that anybody else who was working hard could see his currency shrink whilst he's on the way to the supermarket, whilst he's on the way to any center where you buy goods or services. This was untenable. So the president knew and moved at the right time. They were hoping that a shrunk currency will become the basis of an uprising on the basis that the party and the government has failed. He moved swiftly, put in statutory instruments, reined in the stock exchange, actually suspended its trading, reined in those who were egregious in the abuse of the currency. He also moved against EcoCash as a printer of currency in the digital money, because money now is moved from being paper to digital. So this adroit move by the president, which was very timely, has done that magic of what I've been trying to say for in my presentation, the restoration of a domestic currency to Zimbabwe. We are back to where we were with the gold as our national currency. That's where we are back today. That's why a year later, since the statutory instruments, the Zimbabwe dollar is generally stabilized. People can now see the value of their hard work. There's jubilation. And as if to celebrate these clever moves by our president to restore our domestic currency, God has then rewarded us with abundant rains. He is celebrating together with ZANU PF and our president to say, you have done the right thing. You have restored the national currency of Zimbabwe. This is the basis of the prosperity which we are seeing now coming back into the land. I've had the privilege of working with some of the biggest employers in the country. They are on cloud 5. Their operations, some of them said, since they started business, they've never made so much money. This is even for an economy which is under sanctions. What it shows that the energies of the Zimbabwean people as a hard-working population are now being rewarded because there is a stable currency which can make you plan your economic and business activities. This is the biggest thing which the president has done, which is to restore the financial independence of Zimbabwe. In the 1960s and 70s, we won back our military capacity. In 1980, we won back our political capacity. That's when democracy was restored to the country through independence, through sovereignty. But in 2020, we had the biggest victory of all, which is financial independence. We are on the route to become a prosperous country, harking back to the glorious years of the many Mutapa kingdoms, which I have talked about, which lasted more than 1,000 years. The biggest civilization of Africa south of the Sahara, which has been continuous, is the Zimbabwe civilization. You can see the evidence of our great Zimbabwe, our Kami, our Danamombe, and many other hundreds of stone cities which were built, so stone citadels, which were built up by our people. When Africa was generally building with wood and grass and mud, all these things which are vulnerable to the weather, Zimbabwe was building with stone, granite stone. And you cannot doubt that we were there, even though we don't have a written record. You just need to go and see what we built to see that we go, to acknowledge that we go a long way. This is status of a stable currency, which made prosperity be possible in that year. So don't look down on the impact of what the president has done by restoring and domesticating a national currency once again. He has put Zimbabwe firmly on the road to national prosperity. And I want to salute you for the financial literacy which has gone into the decision making. His team, his economic dream team of the central bank governor, of the Minister Mutuli, Honorable Mutuli Nube, has been fantastic. Yeah. Because the impact of sanctions can no longer be felt that much when you have your own currency in control. And as we increase our gold production, as we go towards digital currency, we insulate ourselves from the egregious abuse of the US dollar for political purposes, for manipulation of Zimbabwe. We are blunting the effect of sanctions. So if ever there's been a weapon which is a fatal blow to the American sanctions against Zimbabwe, it is the restoration and domestication of the national currency.
After instilling financial discipline and ensuring other macroeconomic fundamentals were addressed through the Transitional Stabilization Program, President Mnangagwa moved into the developmental strategies aimed at achieving a middle-income economy by 2030.
The President recently announced National Development Strategy 1. It's a build-up on the Transitional Stabilization Program of the Second Republic. He came in when the economy was in a palace state. Literally, the economy was being used for regime change. And the G40s, who were ignorant and who were kleptomaniacs, they just loved to steal from the state. They were making sure that the country is run down. We are shown as a failed state. The failed state was not only being driven by outside forces, but it had now found a supportive anchor in a subversive leadership within the ranks of the Revolutionary Party, ZANU PF. So Operation Restore Legacy got rid of this cohort at the helm of the state, and the president immediately embarked on very hard-nosed economic decisions to stabilize the currency. He brought in a competent Minister of Finance who used standard economic practice to make sure that Zimbabweans lived within the means, even if it means you don't have. Don't try to live beyond what you don't have. This is the pain which we went through so that we could stabilize our economy. That's TSP1. A lot of these reforms were being pushed in the earlier period by the World Bank, but they were being done without concomitant action against a private sector which had run wild. They wanted austerity measures for people of Zimbabwe to tighten their belt until they became like a wasp, until they broke in two. In the meantime, economic business interests of the West were being allowed to abuse the currency and create inflation. But when President Mnangagwa came with TSP1, he made sure that the sacrifices of the Zimbabwe people were also complemented by proper management of the private sector and reining in of the public sector. This is how our economy was stabilized in TSP. We went beyond what even the strictures of the World Bank or the IMF were. But this time they were rooted in our own volition, in our own will, to make sure that we restore our economy to stability. Once that was achieved, it created the basis of National Development Strategy 1, where the vision is to use Zimbabwe's wealth to build internal capacity within Zimbabwe so that we create prosperity. It's so important that we never lose sight of the desire of the people of Zimbabwe to have a prosperous society. I referred to the kingdoms of 1,000 years. They were based on prosperity. I talked about young people going to war in the 1960s and 70s. They never sacrificed for a flag, for a leader, or for a party. They sacrificed because there was a prospect of prosperity for Zimbabwe. So unless you fulfill the goal of prosperity for the people of Zimbabwe, you are failing the sacrifices of the generation that fought for independence. And President Mnangagwa grasped that. That's why he has been focused on the economy. Zimbabwe is open for business. You can't build a modern country without access to capital. Why did Africa lose out in the 19th century? It's because we were late to become part of the Industrial Revolution. So we were denied our share of capital. This is the reason why Africa was enslaved. This is the reason why Africa was partitioned. This is the reason why Africa was colonized. We did not have access to capital. So when the president says Zimbabwe is open for business, he is addressing this huge deficit on the development prospects of Zimbabwe. He has also done away with the indigenization laws. These were laws which scared capital. We had a railway line which went to Cape Town, it went to Maputo, it went to Beira for exports. We only had one internal railway line covering the Zimbabwe, and it followed the Great Dike from Gwanda to Bindura. Why? Because ferrochrome, is very important for the production of steel. And you cannot build modern cities, bridges, railways, ports, whatever, without steel. So Zimbabwe, courtesy of God's generosity, we have the Great Dike and all its chrome. So the railway line of the colonial order was built to follow chrome so that it could go to the steel mills of Europe to modernize, to build a modern Europe. This is the wisdom which characterizes the economic management of President Mnangagwa. He is doing textbook economics which looks at the reality of the country's resources, marries it to a very educated population, which incidentally is a product of the war. Although we are the third last born on the African continent in terms of acquiring independence, we are number one in education. Why? Because we used the educational, the organizational experience of the war after 1980 to bring education to everybody. The little money which came from the budget was allocated to the teachers. We asked the parents to use their war experience to build schools. So every village was building schools and being rewarded with a teacher from Harare. You ask all the parents of the 1980s, they built schools in their villages. This was a tremendous support to the general development of the country. That's why Zimbabwe today is the most educated country, we are among the last born, but we are also the most educated. Now that population, if you combine it with our resources, you combine it with our organizational discipline from the war, it makes for a very productive country. That's why now with NDS1, we can aspire to the Vision 2030 of the president to create a middle income country. So you can see the importance of leadership. If leadership is wrong, you don't get the desired results. In President Mnangagwa, we now have a leadership which is right. There are three things which matter when a country is developing. Leadership number one, leadership number two, leadership number three. I'm happy to say in all three instances now, in President Mnangagwa, we now have that. And the result can be seen within 3 years of Operation Restore Legacy. We're expecting a bumper crop harvest this year. We're expecting more exports in our steel sector, in our mineral sector. If it had not been for COVID, we would have done well with tourism. So this is the result of good leadership coming in, which is now sharpening our economy to the vision of prosperity, which our people deserve, which our people have always aspired for. Now it is now within grasp under the new leadership. As we talk now, we are looking at the prospect of having a brand new steel plant at Mvuma and Chifu. I'm told reliably that the investors had a board meeting last month in China. The largest steel company in the world, which is number 329, Tsingshan Steel. It is number 329 on the global top 500 companies. Turnover for this company, 40 billion. Production of steel per year, 10 million tons, stainless steel. They are already here in Zimbabwe. They are doing ferrochrome at Selu. The president is going to open coke ovens at Wanke. This is a build-up to the third stage, which is now going to use the mineral resources at Mvuma, Chifu, all the way to Ngezi in Mondoro to build a steel plant. They are not the only ones. Many other companies from China are looking at moving into Zimbabwe. More so now when the geopolitics between China and the West is bad, and Australia has been abusing its position with China as the sole supply of iron ore. Zimbabwe can then come into play because we also have that resource. We have ferrochrome, we have iron ore, we also have nickel. We also have the best coking coal in Africa. There is no reason why Zimbabwe should not become the cheapest cheapest producer of steel in the world, because all the ingredients to make steel in the world are in one place. China imports them from Brazil 12,000 kilometers away, from Australia 8,000 kilometers away, from Indonesia 6,000 kilometers away. In Zimbabwe, it's all within 200 to 300 kilometers of each other. So God has been great. He has given us the natural advantage. And now this is the time. And with the new investor-friendly policies of the president, with ZIDA now functional to make sure that we give incentives, we encourage investment, we can easily aspire to become the fourth or fifth or sixth, maybe seventh, depending, largest stainless steel producer in the world, largest carbon steel producer in the world. Because the companies which are expressing interest in Zimbabwe's steel sector, they are the largest on the global market. So when you attract the attention of the best and largest, you naturally also do well. I was saddened to be the Zimbabwean ambassador in China, to see all the skyscrapers going up, the bridges being built, railways being built, yet we have the best ferrochrome in the world, and there was no ounce of Zimbabwean ferrochrome in an economy which was becoming the second largest economy in the world. How do you become prosperous if the best product which you have, you are not selling it onto the global market? This has all been reversed by President Mnangagwa. Our ferrochrome is now right there. Our nickel is now right there. Our platinum with the new energy and hydrogen is also right there. A lot of things are being done in our mineral sector so that we take advantage of Zimbabwe's natural endowment. This is the beauty of leadership, which is foresighted. This is the beauty of a leadership with a history of patriotism, which we find in our president. This is the beauty of having a revolutionary party with a strong institutional memory. Can you imagine 1963-64, Herbert Chitepo, our late chairman, was reaching out to China when it was still a very poor country. Today, China is the second largest economy in the world. In the next decade, it will be the number one economy in the world. Yet, the foresighted leadership of ZANU PF had actually started carving relations with China at that particular time. You can see the long-range view which ZANU PF as a revolutionary party have. What it means is that for the people of Zimbabwe, as we celebrate our independence, be confident that your party, which has done so much for you in the past, your party which is now restoring prosperity to you today, is going to be the same party which will make sure that you jump from being a poor third world country to middle income status, and within a very short period of time to first world status. It's achievable. Having been one of the great civilizations of the world in the past, why can we not do it again? We can always go back to the past of glory. We can always go back to the future of glory as Zimbabwe. And this is what President Mnangagwa, this is what ZANU PF stands for as we celebrate 41 years of independence. Zimbabwean independence, as I've indicated, was never pushed to office. It came through elections. So the democratic DNA is within the Zimbabwe people. It was getting frustrated in the First Republic, but with the advent of President Mnangagwa and the new republic, there's been a big opening up of space. Subjects which were once taboos, like the Bukura Hundi mishap between our people in the challenge of inclusive nation building, they are being addressed. There's been tremendous effort to reach out to religious organizations. So the space of freedom has been widened with the free play of the press, whether it be electronic or conventional press. All these are being given free. There are new aspects about democracy, and even the Mo Ibrahim Index of democratic development in Africa has acknowledged what our president has been doing. So there have been a lot of pariah status ascribed to Zimbabwe because of the democratic deficit. President Mnangagwa has moved to address those by national inclusivity, by also reaching out to everyone regardless of religion, creed, or color. We've now even sorted out our issues with the former white commercial farmers through the global compensation agreement. We want an inclusive society. We don't want somebody not to farm because he has a certain racial background. It's not good for the country. We never fought a racial war. We fought a revolutionary war to give democracy and independence to all, including those who were our enemies, those who were opposed to those tenets. We freed them from their own bondage of regarding other people as inferior. This is what the president has done in terms of inclusivity. He has also reached out to our enemies. As to our enemies, we don't want to be enemy of anybody as Zimbabwe. We only want to be friend of everybody. So I've talked about what we are doing with China. We've done well with China with COVID. They've done a tremendous, help to Zimbabwe. In fact, we are now the leading nation in Africa in terms of vaccination. We are among the leading cases of our relationship with China. Our death rates were low during the era of COVID. Why? Because we worked very well with China, because it has the capacity to manufacture medicines and the capacity to manufacture PPEs, which nobody has. So that relationship has been very useful to Zimbabwe, the Chinese connection. But it's not the only relationship we want. We want America to become part of the prosperity of Zimbabwe. We are very happy now that the President Biden is focusing on America developing its infrastructure, because their infrastructure, I've lived in America, I've lived in China. You can't compare the two infrastructure. America is way behind. The airports of China are ultra modern. The railways of China are the fastest in the world. The ports of China, they know logistics better than anybody. Remember, China is the trading partner number 1 or number 2 of every major trading nation in the world. So the common denominator of world trade today is China. 25% of the world trade is accounted for by China. So it's good to be associated with a country which is so much involved in world trade. We want to sell to China. We want to get investment from China. But it's not the only country we are looking at. We are looking at other countries. And when President Biden says America is going to build infrastructure to catch up and surpass China, that's good, because this is the economy number 1 of the world, investing in infrastructure. What does it mean? It means more steel. What does more steel mean? It means more work on the Great Dike. The Great Dike will be busy producing ferrochrome to supply American steel mills or Zimbabwean steel mills, so we sell steel to China. There is an emerging resource boom now, which we must take full advantage of. We don't want to do what we did when we missed out on the Chinese demand for resources when China opened up after 1978. I told you Zimbabwean chrome was absent from building modern China. This time, Zimbabwean chrome must be very much there when we are building a new infrastructure for America. So we think that President Biden is on the right track, and this creates even more room for engagement between Zimbabwe and the United States, between Europe and Zimbabwe, because we have the resources, we have a hard-working population, we have the discipline of that population, we have a very solid government, a government which we can stand 20 years of Western sanctions in Africa is very stable. So we have got a very, very forward-looking, a visionary leadership. This, I think, is the basis of our engagement and re-engagement with the West. We will succeed because this time we are offering something on the table. We are offering a very productive nation which is also ready to become part of the global community in terms of the trades of goods and services. With our high literacy rate, look at what our diaspora has done. Wherever they went, they perform well. That's a sample of the Zimbabwean population doing well, looking for businessmen abroad in order to be employed. Can you imagine if we give them the conditions where businessmen come to Zimbabwe? That sample becomes the population of Zimbabwe. It will do wonders in terms of production. What will it do? It will produce world-class goods made in Zimbabwe for the global market. We must walk into supermarkets across the world and find products made in Zimbabwe. Switzerland does that. Sweden does that. These are great exporting nations. Singapore is doing that. Japan, you don't doubt the capacity of Japan when you see Toyotas and Nissans and Honda Fits on the road. We must equally have Zimbabwean products in foreign countries. And with a hard-working population, an educated young population of Zimbabwe, with a good leadership, with good organization, with a disciplined labor force, and the endowment of the resources which Zimbabwe has, and a great climate and fertile soils, we have absolutely no reason why we should miss the bus again to make sure that we develop to become a modern country. And in President Mnangagwa, three things we are like to have: leadership, leadership, and leadership.